Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here, and I'm always looking for good news. And we have found a little bit of this. Two Detroit physicians, medical doctors, have been able, who were whistleblowers on the mega giant medical fraud industry, which seems to be prevalent. I mean, this is one of the problems with, not only are people can't get care and the cost of everything is so high, well, that's not good enough for hospitals. They have to make sure they cheat everyone. And two doctors finally stood up against the hospitals, and of course, they were quickly fired. Yes, that's right. Very typical. And they were fired in October 2018 and were awarded just recently. Of course, this is 4 years later, so what kind of financial problems they have is unknown. But they were awarded $10 million, these two Detroit area cardiologists, for being what's called retaliation for reporting what are basically crimes. And this is something that goes on all the time. And we need to completely understand this and know how corrupt doctors, medical institutions are. So there's a few good out there, apparently. Like everything else, I'm afraid it's a little too few and a little bit too late. But this is a major breakthrough and a major success for anybody who is trying to stop corruption. And they spoke out against the so many violations that were done by the Detroit Medical Center. These are tenant healthcare operations, which there are many of. This is a billion-dollar operation, Tenet Medical, who runs DMC, Detroit Medical Center, which is a huge medical center, probably taking in billions in the city. So this is very typical of what is going on out there, and certainly nothing new. But just reaffirms, and of course, we can stop all this very easily. We have to put in proper corruption laws, many of them that we already have, and we have to put in a lot of benefits to become a whistleblower. Every whistleblower should be automatically awarded $1 million. It's just as simple as that. You get $1 million for being a whistleblower, and as simple as that. And anyone that is connected to harassing people like this are fined or should be closed down, and they should be seeking criminal allegations against these people. The fact that this company is not under criminal investigation by the Justice Department is appalling. And I recently listened to a Department of Justice past rep, and how they like to talk about all these things and how they dislike Trump and everything else. Well, Trump was able to function and make billions because the Justice Department didn't go after the organized crime that runs this entire world, and particularly New York City. Where are you? So the point is these are the problems we run into. Now, all of the corruption can be solved very, very easily. And here's two people who stood up, and of course they stood up and they were knocked down. Losing privileges, losing everything else that cost them a lot of money. I'm not sure how they survived. They went into private practice, etc. But they lost their ability, because you have to be cleared. You just can't walk into a hospital as a doctor. You have to get qualified and you have to get privileges in that hospital. And of course, why the costs of everything are through the roof is the same old story. Well, I'll tell you why, and here's the plan. We'll go over all these things and show you why the costs are so high, and it's really based in fraud. And how many people did they turn away? While they overbuild the government like they do all the time. And this is this should be something that is watched by the Department of Justice much more careful than it is. Billions are being lost through criminal collection of actual Medicare and government monies. It's horrendous, and it seems to never end. So let's talk about these, and you'll see the pictures of these two doctors on the actual video here. It's Dr. Mahir Elder and Amir Kaki. These two doctors who are very courageous, who are now working together, and they're cardiologists, took a lot of courage to stand up and do this against a well-known corrupt organization, which is Tenet and the Detroit Medical Centers. They took this case and to court, and of course it went to arbitration, which is supposed to be binding. You come to an agreement in arbitration so you don't have to go to the court system where it costs everybody a lot more money. All the arbitrators agreed with the doctors, and they were awarded $10 million and reinstating their privileges at 3 DMC, Detroit Medical Centers. Because again, they have these huge things there, and if you're working in the Detroit area, you have to work in these areas for you to do your job. So all of this went there, and I won't go into too much of the details that aren't overly interesting, but we will. Needless to say, they were rewarded this money. Of course, Tenet is again trying to appeal this when they're not really supposed to. The arbitration is supposed to be binding. It just shows you the kind of people it is. They expected to go into arbitration and get a slap on the hand, apparently, and when it was found out of their egregious activities, alleged criminal activities, they were hit with quite a settlement, and I'm not sure that's even enough. They pushed for the arbitrator case, thinking they were going to get this deal, and they find out that the evidence was so strong that they did it. And the arbitrator also awarded $624,000 plus $110,000 as sanctions for discovery abuses. So they were playing all sorts of nasty legal games as well, but $624,000 in legal fees. So this is added on to the $10 million. And of course, they give you the same old garbage that they're here to help the patients and everything else. Well, they certainly aren't, and when you should encourage your doctors and medical staff, and there's others that are reported against them, to report any abuses so that you can run a proper hospital, keep your costs in line, get payment where you should, and not abuse the system and allow corrupt people to run everything. So, and this is what happens with everything, and then we look to a particular area of problem. The only way to handle corruption is it has to come from the inside out, but whistleblowers need a huge amount of public support, governmental support, and the regular public. If we're going to change all these corrupt organizations, there are good people in everything. If we're going to change police departments, it's not going to happen from the outside in. We need to find the good cops who are suppressed and harassed in that industry and allow them to be whistleblowers, come out and put them in positions of responsibility to clean up everything. And that goes for every single industry, because every industry is corrupt. And that includes places like NASA and everything else who've been caught in a whole bunch of alleged criminal activities of kickbacks and other things. So it happens everywhere. And it'll never stop until there are criminal penalties for doing all this, which should be. What they're doing here is really evil and criminal, and it needs to stop, and it's not difficult to do it. There are many instances with Tenet and other subsidiaries of Tenet involved in all sorts of bad problems. And why are they allowed to get away with this? Well, apparently, Tenet and its subsidiaries previously paid out in 20 years $1.8 billion in penalties and for what they've done. I don't know why you're paying out penalties. These are criminal acts and should be dealt that way. If we start putting the people running these institutions in prison, it'll stop and stop quickly. Fining the company does nothing. Theoretically, they charge the patients more to cover their criminality. I mean, this is horrific. So this has to stop and has to go to the highest level. And we certainly, if a doctor comes forward and his life is ruined, nobody's going to come forward. This is one of the catch-22s of doing anything in life. You come forward, you state something, and you're pounced on every level, like IGOS is, pounced on by local criminal police departments and others that harass this organization just for what we've done in the past and continue to do. This is a reality. These people have to be penalized to the point of criminal charges. This is criminal charges what they're doing. They're doing criminal acts, plain and simple. For all of these things that people who are harassed by. So I'm not, it certainly has been alleged with the Tenet and its subsidiaries. There's another case pending against Tenet involving Detroit Medical Center, brought by 4 nurses who filed a lawsuit in June seeking $25 million each in compensation for alleged wrongful discharge, retaliation against whistleblowers, and intentional and reckless infliction of emotional distress. I mean, this is very typical, and already we're in a very bad industry, a very stressed industry, but this is not just an industry. We're not producing plastic cups here. People's lives are involved. This is the medical industry. How many of these alleged problems that they cause the actual death of patients? I mean, that's a good. How many people left the industry, which is short of personnel to begin with, because of this kind of disgusting behavior done by all of the medical industry? I mean, we have a very sick world, and this sick world goes into any place there's lots of money. And when there's lots of money, you're going to find lots of corruption. So nobody's happy with the money they make. Apparently the same with doctors. I have other reviews on doctors who are stealing again. There seems to be an endless amount of people defrauding the government and doctors working in land. They're not happy with their $250,000 a year. That is the average doctor makes. They want more and more. They want millions and millions of dollars to, and they'll do whatever it takes to do this. To make this money to fill their pockets. It's really sad when we're talking about things. One doctor, as I've already reported, was faked test trials for child's asthma medications. Well, this is unbelievable. I mean, asthma is a killer. So the point is that she's faking results of medications so she can fill her pockets with hundreds of thousands of dollars, which would have resulted in the death of people. This is not a joke, and we're in a medical industry that nobody really cares. The busiest place in a hospital is always the morgue. Think about that. So the whole idea is this is what's one of the many here, but this is good news because they have been awarded a lot, $10 million, $5 million each. Certainly will take care of this 4 years of hell they've went through. And apparently these 2 doctors were able to keep practicing and have been leaders in the industry. Maybe this is the reason why they did it, was because of the fact, just looking at a brief bio of them, these are 2 doctors that were speakers and well-known and well-educated. And were able to withstand this, even though I'm assuming they expected to lose privileges, but they were able to survive, then go to big-time lawyers because they had money, and able to go after this huge corporation. So this is a great, great benefit, and of course their privileges are reinstated in those hospitals as well, which is very important, as I've mentioned before. So again, this company has paid out almost $2 billion in the last 20 years. That tab continues to go up with people filing charges against them consistently. This is a bad organization. This is a corporation that is indirectly, if not directly, allegedly murdering people because of their practices, or I should say causing the death of people because of their alleged practices. So there's a real problem here, and this is not just this hospital. I've seen these kind of things everywhere. Hospitals are controlled by criminals. They tell them what to do. It's a scary thing out there, as all industries are. many people and not necessarily involved, but I'm assuming this company is just as dirty as everybody else. There's a lot of scary things going on, including medical murder, that if you're one of these people that the organized crime doesn't like and you go in the hospital, you don't come out. And doctors assist in your murder as well as nurses. So this is sad, and of course, we need to stop this on every single level. This is no joke, as people are deliberately hurt by organized crime, working with criminal police officers to get people into auto accidents. This is done all the time. So this is really sad, and unfortunately, this also affects all the doctors who tend to work with these organizations one way or another, and of course feeding illegal narcotics and every other type of drug to organized crime as well, willingly and unwillingly. This is very, very evil. If things are happening like this and there's doctors reporting at this level, it's because it's pandemic. This isn't occasional. This is because of the fact that it is happening all over the place. This is one or two items. I mean, these two doctors have alleged that a whole bunch of unnecessary procedures were done. Of course they would. And I've told this to people before. The bottom line is they're going to do all sorts of operations on you that insurance companies normally easily pay so they can make money off of you. It's a business. It doesn't matter. And your pain and suffering means nothing to them. And they won't even give you pain pills. There was removing equipment from a catheterization lab for some reason. That happened by the parent company. There were potentially or alleged fraudulent billing under Medicare and Medicaid. Again, unnecessary operations, extra billings, and everything else. And who pays for all this? Well, ultimately, a lot of it comes out of our pocket. And of course, they are deliberately overcharging Medicare and Medicaid for all sorts of services that the government pays. And the reason why medical keeps going up and up, a lot of it has to do with, and maybe primarily, has to do with the amount of fraud out there, which never seems to end. Fraudulent billing seems to be very common, and there isn't enough people watching for this. So we've got to be very careful of that. So this is just one of a tip of an iceberg. These kind of judgments are critical. This should be encouraged. Doctors should be supported, or any whistleblower in any industry should be supported from the minute they make a claim to the very end of this being solved. Plain and simple. And they should be paid millions of dollars, which it would easily be out there by the billions that are being stolen from our pockets every day. We have to make whistleblowing something that everybody wants to do and cater to the lowest common denominator, and that's money. People should be out there constantly pointing out anything that's going wrong in any organization so that it can be handled efficiently. This is why there's so much government regulation, which tends to turn bad because of corruption. But this is why so many government agencies are out there. And a lot of people say, well, get government out of everything. Well, this certainly would be good if there was any kind of self-regulating. But we have the Food and Drug Administration because tens of thousands of people were dying from poisoned food, and a lot of them were even military. So everything that's out there, or commissions that have been started because of abuses by the corporate world out there, who doesn't give a damn except for profits. They'll dump toxins, pollute everything, all because of the fact that they don't want to pay the bill to do things right. So we have to have people watching them all the time. And of course, this is what creates bigger government. And unfortunately, what ultimately creates a lot of corruption, because these people are bought off. Now, if people could get their money legally by being a whistleblower, well, they wouldn't have to take corruption money to get rich. And why not let somebody get rich who's reporting horrible abuses? I mean, all problems are very easily solved. People that tell you can't solve problems are people that don't want to solve the problems because they benefit from the problem. And this is it. Nobody wants regulation because they want to do whatever they want. The military wants to waste trillions of dollars on buying stuff that there isn't even manpower to use. I believe recently the U.S. Army came out and said, don't keep sending us tanks. We have no personnel to put in them. This is the kind of thing that Congress does because they get kickbacks for it. So it goes on and on with all these ridiculous things. And even as I said, the U.S. military complains, we have all this equipment, but we don't have manpower to handle this. The pay of a lot of people is fairly low. So all of this comes into the stupidity of what is corrupt government. The medical industry, where people can't get services, who now, I believe 69% of the, some ridiculous figure, I think it's 60% of the American population has a medical bill in collections. People can't pay their medical bills. They don't have any money. And it seemed to me that $2 billion, which Tenet has paid in the last 20 years because of their alleged activities, which I allege probably are very criminal in nature, certainly could have paid the bill for all of these people. I doubt if it's $2 billion worth of these, but it could be people owing medical bills. You can't pay it. It goes on and on and on. What do you do? And this hurts the medical industry and everybody else. So these are the type of things that happen that if we don't get under control, we have problems. We allow this, and we allow people to treat us like garbage when our life is at stake, when our family's life is at stake. Our relatives, our children's, our parents are being murdered indirectly. And quite frankly, I think it's very direct. This is not something that you just walk away from. You are persecuted by these people who put you in debt and then steal everything you have. It's horrific. And this needs to change. And the only way we change is making sure that we empower whistleblowers in every single industry to do. Then you'll see how things change. The second area, of course, not only should we have this fund, which is peanuts, there are, as we see even recently, when they want to come up with trillions of dollars, they certainly can't. So it's nonsense, and there's many ways of raising money and many ways of cutting big fat out of budgets that don't need it, particularly the military. So the whole idea is that all this can be easily handled, but we have to make sure that we take care of people that come forward. If we're expecting people to come in high risk and dangerous areas, like particularly law enforcement, well, we're going to have to make sure that they have a stable, protected, and secure reality there so that they can come forward and not feel that life and their family are threatened. And of course, it's the same thing with even medical industry. Well, if you lose your income, you're on the street. What do you do? So the whole idea is everybody needs to be protected and protected well and rewarded extremely well for coming forward so that the business is not the business of corruption. It's the business of whistleblowing, to coming forward with legitimate claims of misconduct and criminal activity, and your life is made perfect because you've done that. You've been rewarded, and rewarded highly, for doing a good deed. That's how you change everything. It's easy, like all changes. It's really easy. And everyone wants to say, well, you can't do it. What do you mean you can't do this? Nonsense. You're speaking for the corrupt system that you are benefiting from. That needs to change, and it hasn't changed, and corruption is the number one problem. The systems, the laws are there. They have to be enforced, and we need a strong-fisted federal agency that takes care of whistleblowers in general. That comes out, supports them, protects them, and that everyone knows this. Organized crime knows this. You never go after a whistleblower, or you're going to be in serious trouble. Same thing with corporations or anyone else. If there is a problem with all that, then what happens is plain and simple that you are going to be in serious trouble if you go against the whistleblower division, the anti-corruption division people. You're not going to be able to do that. It's simple, it's easy, it is low cost, and it can change the world within months. So our hats off to these two Detroit cardiac physicians. Mahir Elder and Amir Kaki. So let's hear it for them. Their names are printed at the bottom of this video so that you can, if you're in the Detroit area and need these kind of services, well, these are the kind of people you should support. And if you do go to them, thank them for trying to keep the medical industry honest. Until next time.